Certainly did not expect that. It should be no secret as of now that the story of Jujutsu Kaisen is about to come to an end. I believe that most people felt that way while reading the Shinjuku Showdown arc, but it was recently just flat out confirmed by Weekly Shonen Jump that chapter 271 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which releases on the 30th of September, will be the final chapter, thereby supposedly being the conclusion to this story. And that sudden news obviously came as a huge surprise to most readers, because while the story did seem to be coming to a close, 5 chapters to a lot of people does not seem like an adequate amount to fully finish what's currently happening in this arc. At least, not without a ton of stuff feeling rushed or unsatisfactory. My personal opinion on the whole thing is I have a large amount of respect for Gege as a writer. I think he's brilliant, and he's written some of the best chapters of manga I've ever read, but he also has a habit of not fleshing out really interesting plot points or filling in the background on extremely interesting subjects within Jujutsu Kaisen for the sake of moving the story forward, and for the most part that's worked out for him, and as mentioned prior, in moving the story forward, he's done incredible things. But now that there is a set date and time where this story is definitively going to be done by, I can't really help but look back and see copious amounts of untapped potential that will most likely remain that way. Now, in saying all of this, that doesn't necessarily mean that the ending for Jujutsu Kaisen will be bad. I can't think of a shonen manga I've read so far that doesn't have at least 1 or 2 things that could have been explored deeper, but just wasn't for a litany of reasons. One, as of recent, that comes to mind is a story called Eden's Zero, which had quite a number of problems with its final arc, but still managed to produce somewhat of a decent and satisfying ending, hitting most of the necessary markers that it needed to. However, the difference between these 2 stories is that there's unfortunately just a whole lot more that needs to be resolved by the time the ending comes around than something like Eden Zero. And I'm going to go through just some of the things that need to be resolved here so that you can see where I'm fully getting at. Really quickly though, just gotta butt in here, I just wanted to say, make sure you leave a like. It really helps out these kinds of videos and lets me know that you want to see more from me, whether it be JJK or something else entirely. With that being said though, back to what I was talking about. So, for starters, and I know some may roll their eyes as soon as I say his name, but Gojo, or actually more specifically, Yuta. The question is, can Gege successfully tie all loose ends that pertain to Yuta, and what even actually happens to him? The last time we saw Yuta, Kenjaku's curse technique had burned out due to the domain expansion, leaving Yuta essentially crippled and motionless at the end of chapter 263. Oh yeah, and then he got hit with Jacob's ladder. So who even knows if the guy survived? Because unlike the others, Todo, Sukuna, Yuji, like I said, he couldn't move. Now, something else that also needs to be addressed is the merger. There was a massive amount of hype built up around the idea of the merger by the fandom and within the actual story itself. Kenjaku was believed to be the one that would achieve this goal and bring about its existence, but he met his end at the hands of Yuta, subsequently leaving it in the hands of Sukuna, who boldly proclaimed during his battle against Yuji many chapters ago that he would inherit the will of Kenjaku and successfully achieve the merger. But with how big from not just a metaphysical standpoint, but from an actual physical standpoint the merger was supposed to be, with only 5 chapters left, I couldn't possibly see how that could come to pass at all. There just isn't enough time. Moving on to the next plot point though, this one isn't really something that I've ever cared about, but it still needs to be addressed regardless of my personal interest. That plot point being Hikari versus Urame, which has been so unbelievably irrelevant to the narrative that it's actually kinda sad. I mean, the only time either of them were given any attention in recent chapters was when Gege needed Urame to gas up Sukuna, and they would appear for at most a page, maybe a page and a half, before focus switched back to the more important characters. But as far as their actual fight and the dynamics of it, well, that's so inconsequential to the overarching narrative that the optics seem to indicate that Gege didn't have any real plan for those characters, so they were delegated to the background and left there. However, now with the ending rapidly approaching, something needs to be done with these two, and I can probably guess that whatever it is, it'll be disappointing for the fans of either character. But one can hope not, right? After that, though, then comes Megumi, who could possibly sacrifice himself to take down Sukuna, which if handled well could be a fine send-off for the character. But there's one thing about Megumi that doesn't necessarily need to be addressed before the story finishes, but at the same time, kinda does. Because one of the most integral parts of Megumi's development through the story has been his domain expansion. His best moments of growth within the series have in some form or fashion been directly related to said move, and continuously, as Fushiguro develops, we see the domain develop as well. Actual physical changes were made, which in turn made it seem like there was more evolution that needed to take place before we saw its final form. Now that Megumi is kind of back in the story, in a way, if we don't eventually see his completed domain expansion, that won't necessarily be a killing blow to the character or anything like that, but I couldn't tell you how severely underwhelmed I'd be as a result of that evolution not coming to pass. And I could go on and on about more stuff that I feel should definitely happen before the 30th, but a lot of it would be considered fan service, and a lot of it would probably also most definitely be addressed before the 30th. Like Yuji's domain expansion, I expect in these 5 chapters we're going to learn what it actually does, and what is the surefire hit technique. But something like a Heian era flashback, I mean, it could definitely help Sukuna's character, it could bolster him up, it could give him more characterization, but not having it wouldn't derail the narrative at play in the story. Not having it wouldn't totally upend everything that Gege's working on right now. It would just be a nice addition. So I'll get off of all of that entirely and simply say that I am hoping for the best. Even though I'm a tad bit worried, finales for shonen manga have a track record of not necessarily being the best, but Gege Akutami has delivered some of the best modern shonen to date, and however Jujutsu Kaisen wraps up, good or bad, I'm just happy that I got to go on this ride and experience the plethora of great moments that this story had to offer. And it's not like once the manga ends, that's it for Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole. We still have at least 2 seasons of the anime left, a possible movie, as well as whatever else they decide to do in the future. Whether it be a Jujutsu Kaisen sequel, a Jujutsu Kaisen Shippuden. I'm sure we'll definitely see something. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it for me with this one, so thank you all very much for watching. I hope that you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe with the notifications on, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody!